Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and today on the show, we're headed to the Crag as I bring in climber, podcaster, and musician Kris Hampton to roll through some rock fights in the rock climbing world. But before we get to that, guys, it's working. Me getting on my knees and begging you to subscribe is getting us new subscribers. And that means that more people can find the Rock Fight. So if you haven't yet, please, right now, click that follow button on whatever app you're listening to this on. Then scroll down, rate the show 5 stars, leave a quick review. It doesn't have to be long. Just write, "Great podcast," and click submit. Thank you for helping us grow. All right, let's start the show. Welcome to the Rock Fight, Rock Fight, Rock Fight. I'm very lucky today to be joined by Kris Hampton, who is a climbing coach and owner of Power Company Climbing, host of multiple rock climbing-centric podcasts over on the Plugtone Audio Network, including the recently launched Written in Stone, which is a climbing history podcast. If you like rock climbing and you're listening to this, you need to check out the show. It is definitely for you. And if you want to talk about rock climbing, this is the guy you call. So, Kris, welcome to the show.
Man, thanks for having me, Colin. I'm excited to get to throw some rocks. You know, I've burned a lot of bridges with climbing magazines and the climbing media in general because I'm willing to throw rocks. That's a lot of my history, so I'm psyched.
The second ever episode of The Rock Fight was me expressing my displeasure with shirtless dudes in the climbing gym. Because there's no way to me that that's not an exercise in vanity and attention seeking. And I fully understand. I've climbed outside. I understand. I've climbed shirtless outside. But I really feel like when you go to the climbing gym and there's that guy or guys, do you defend the shirtless gym climber? Is that something? Am I missing something when it comes to the shirtless gym climber?
If we were doing this in like 1998, I would defend the shirtless gym climber.
So this is an age thing, not a
an age and a growth of the climbing industry thing. Because here's my asterisks here. In the late 90s, early 2000s, I was in Cincinnati. I was in the climbing gyms a lot. And all climbing gyms at that time were in dark, dirty, industrial buildings with no ventilation and no air conditioning. And in the summer, it would be sweltering in there.
Yeah, they're like metal boxes, right? I mean, they were basically like old metal buildings that have been converted to climbing gyms.
Yep. So everyone would be in various states of undress, you know? And for a while, I was one of those guys, for sure, in my early 20s. But then I realized that, you're in such close quarters in a gym and people are up above you. So when you start getting dripped on, it's just not cool. And especially if you're the sweaty dude, if you're that sweaty guy and you're like, well, that's why I have to take my shirt off because I'm extra sweaty. I'm like, no, that's why you need to keep your shirt on because you're extra sweaty. And I don't want you dripping on me or leaving a literal puddle when you do fall off. You know, I don't want that. So keep the shirt on.
It's a safety thing, man. You don't want to drip on your belay. You don't distract the person who's saving your life if you fall.
No, I've literally been standing in the sport climbing area of a gym in Cincinnati, and a guy climbing next to me out this overhang right above me. I look up and his sweat lands right on my lip.
Oh, no.
No, keep the shirts on, man. Keep the shirts on.
Maybe that's why you can't use ATCs at climbing gyms anymore. You have to go Greery. So that way, if too many people are taking their hands off the rope to wipe the sweat off, their partner's sweat off their face. You know, it's funny when you get these sort of hot take or these these hard formed opinions. Because I distinctly remember this one. Because like I said, I've climbed outside on hot days. I definitely have bouldered shirtless. I always remember thinking, being in a gym, dude, come on. This even before I even had kids. Why are you walking around shirtless? But I remember the climbing gym I go to now is also just my regular gym, and I probably honestly go to it more just to lift and work out than I do to climb. But so I remember just being over there, doing something in the gym part, and someone just came walking in with 5-inch Patagonia baggies on, no shirt, no shoes, no socks, just rolling it and started jumped on the rowing machine. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not okay with this. Like, just
Yeah,
go
totally.
put your shirt on, bro.
Well, I have a proposal, since women are sort of restricted to having to wear sports bras, the shirtless dudes can just wear sports bras.
I'm into that.
Yeah,
You
I'm
see,
all
like
for it.
the soccer community, the European football community, they always have like it looks like men are wearing sports bras, but it's
Yeah,
their heart rate monitors.
yeah.
You can double it up. You get a heart rate monitor going. You can combine the Strava crowd with the shirtless climbing crowd, like the vanity metrics for two sports, colliding. Let's do this.
And then you can look on your Strava to know which gym to avoid.
That'd be amazing. Larry is the local legend at this gym. He's done this 511 route 72 times in the last 30 days. Actually, we don't want to give Strava any ideas. But I do think that the other episode I really, and it hasn't been a lot, like I said, about the focus on climbing, but the one I wanted to write, and I do feel this way, I kind of posited the theory that you got to try climbing outside at least once to be outdoorsy. Because even like Justin Hausman, who comes on once a week, we were talking. I don't think it made the episode, but we were chatting about is there a more kind of hardcore outdoor adventure sport than climbing? And we both were like, no. Like maybe like high alpine mountaineering, just because of like the death factor is like it's like 1 in 3 on some of like Himalayan peaks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just for the sheer, you talk about vanity stuff, right? Like the photos you get and the way it looks. And if you tell someone that you're rock climbing, like there's just nothing more badass than that. Like, oh, I'm a mountain biker. Like, great. I surf 2-foot waves. Cool. I go ride lifts. All right. But here's a picture of me rock climbing. Oh shit. Like that's badass. So I guess taking personal bias out of it, like, do you think I'm onto something? Do you agree with that? Or, and also like, how do you sort of rank, the outdoor adventure sports and activities?
Yeah, I'm a contrarian by nature. Like I want to, interrogate everything that pops up in front of me. So I really wanted to disagree with this, and I tried really hard to disagree with it. And I wanted to disagree because I don't think it's very hardcore. Or at least it doesn't have to be hardcore. Similar to, like you just said, you're surfing 2-foot waves. Well, there's also these big wave surfers out there that I think are way more hardcore,
right,
than climbers who are, surfing 2-foot waves, so to speak. And I think especially with the prevalence of climbing gyms, it's not that hardcore in the like entry level. And it's almost like, mountain runners are super hardcore, but most people climbing for the first time are jogging on a pavement trail, a trail made of concrete. So
right.
I don't see it as hardcore in that respect. However, I do think the general public still feels it's hardcore, and it's still like you mentioned that it sort of brings in all the parts of the outdoor experience that we want. And I do think it does that. Like you're hiking in and out of the place, so you get to like see the views and, go into nature, so to speak. And then you're getting above the ground on your own power. And most people are never going to do that, unless it's an airplane or an elevator or an escalator or something, they're not getting off the ground. So
it probably has the highest barrier to entry, right? Because
there
are people who have height problems who are just never even going to try. And no matter what you do, to be like, no, like try, we'll go to the gym. It'll be this. No, I am out. But those people might still try mountain biking or riding on a dirt path or running, like you said, like up a little hill or something like that. But there is a little extra something there to climbing.
Totally. The thing I think is equivalent is surfing, though. Like I think enough people have a fear of water and oceans, and water is so powerful. Like you can walk up to a cliff and it looks intimidating, but when you walk up to the ocean and it's like heavy waves, it's scary.
I think you're right. No, I think you're absolutely right. 'Cause I've had similar conversations with surf, like, oh, you should try surfing, and people are like, oh my God, no, like no, I can't. Like that's terrifying. Same thing with rock climbing. I think the thing about climbing that I like, and and probably similar too, like the exposure in the waves and how even a small wave can knock you on your ass and like you kind of don't have control over your body for a few seconds. It is that exposure on rock climbing, but similarly to just trying it. Like I'll never forget, I was in Big Cottonwood Canyon. I was when I was living in Salt Lake, and we were climbing with some buddies after work, and I remember going up, and we were, they set up a top rope, and I was up there. I was about 2/3 of the way up, and I kind of got in a pinch, and I was starting to kind of freak out a little.
Yeah.
And my buddies could tell, and they're like, "Hey, dude, just let go," because we were top roping, right? And I'm like, so I just let go, and you fall like 2 inches, and you're like, "Oh," like, "Oh, it's okay,"
Yep.
You have those moments, and for especially, it's a funny point where I feel like, yeah, it's probably maybe the highest barrier to entry. However, but there's more in place to lower that barrier to entry than any other sports because of the climbing gyms. Because you can go have a relatively, authentic climbing experience by going to a climbing gym and understand what the movements feel like, what it's like to hang on a rope, like all the trust your gear, all those things, in a much more controlled setting. And yet I still feel like I'm sure there are people out there who really would struggle with even trying.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched people really, really freak out. Years ago in the Red River Gorge, I had climbed this 3-pitch trad route with this group of people who were relatively new, and there was a woman there who had never done anything like this, and at the top of in the middle of the second pitch, or third pitch, sorry, is a ledge that you can stand on. And I'm on top, and I'm belaying her up, and she gets to this ledge, and she's like, "That's it. I'm done." And I was like, "Okay, well, I can lower you back down to, the ledge below you." And she's like, "No, I'm done."
Oh, no.
Like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I'm staying right here."
just moving in? Like, you're going to airdrop in groceries? Like, what do you think you're going to do?
Yeah, I sat up there on belay trying to talk her through it for like 6 hours. And she's like, her boyfriend's on the ledge below, and he's trying to talk to her. And she's like, "I'm telling your mom when we get out of this."
That's amazing.
And she just wouldn't move. So
did she ended up rappelling down?
I ended up lowering her down after
You lowered her down.
sweet talking her off the, to step off the ledge and weight the rope. Yeah.
I'm sure you can. I mean, I've definitely been in places doing all sorts of activities where I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then you maybe have that little pity party for a few minutes, and then you realize, oh shit, I'm like 20 miles in the backcountry.
Right.
Like I guess I have to ride back or walk back or whatever it is, and then you just start, like, well, I have no choice but to go, to just sort of like shut down. Like, no, like what did she want? What did she want to have happen? Did she want a helicopter to come in? Like what was
magic? I don't know. She just wanted out of it, and I think climbing does play at a lot of our fears. There's like, as you're getting pumped or fatigued, it's like this loss of control, and then you're just going to drop into the abyss. So
that is a good point. So because you have an older child. My daughter's about to turn 18, and one of the best things, and she climbs a little bit. She was on a climbing team at a gym where we lived up in the Northwest, and so she and I still go climbing somewhat frequently. We just go to the climbing gym. And for a while, we weren't rope climbing. And then all of a sudden, a few months ago, we're like, oh, we should start rope climbing again. Because now I'm like, oh, you're old enough that you can belay me. And for most of her climbing life, it was, hey, Dad, let's go rope climbing. I'm like, this sounds terrible. I'm just going to belay you the entire time. And like, I don't get to go have any fun because, she was 12, right? She couldn't belay me. But so not having rope climb for a while and then to kind of just jumping back into it, it was actually kind of nerve wracking. Like now all of a sudden, and we're just doing like 5-6s, in the climbing gym. So very controlled, like I was saying, no ATC anymore. Like, she can't screw it up if I fall, but you kind of get 2/3 of the way up. And like you said, oh my God, my arms are getting pumped. I'm starting to feel like the top isn't a sure thing. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm like, just these weird, irrational thoughts are coming into your head. Like, is my harness going to hold me? Like, why wouldn't my harness hold me? It's like a 2-year-old harness. I mean, it's fine, and I'm then a climbing gym top roping. But it's weird how these things creep into the back of your head. And I don't know if any other sport quite has those same sort of like demons that kind of speak to you in those moments.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like, there's a fear, like if you're on top of a half pipe and you're about to drop in, there's a fear in that moment,
Right. Yeah.
But then when you drop in, no matter what happens, it happens so fast. There's nothing you can do about it.
You're either ripping or you're crashing, right? It's one or the other.
And it's similar in most sports. Like You don't get to spend a lot of time thinking, but in climbing, you get a lot of time to consider what might happen, and you go through all the worst case scenarios. Yeah, I wanted to disagree with this, but I think I agree. Fuck, I agree.
Well, another thing we talk about quite a bit on the show is kind of the jaded, opinionated, outdoorsy person versus sort of the engaged, optimistic kook or noob. Oh, you're already smiling.
Oh my God.
I gotta think kind of like we were just saying about maybe the hardcore conversation. It's got to be somewhat similar, right? So,
Yeah.
How does the experience? Well, I mean, you're probably one of the best persons. You've been climbing for a long time, and it's clearly like your passion. You have a climbing wall at your house. You have multiple podcasts about it. You own a climbing company.
Yeah.
How would you feel when you're engaging with the noobs, the kooks, the people who are out there who are just trying this for the first time?
Well, I'll say this, Colin. I'm in serious danger of becoming the curmudgeons, of the world. I'm in serious danger of it, and I'm constantly checking myself. Like, are you that guy? And I try really hard not to be, because I don't like those guys.
I know.
I don't. It's so counter to reality, really.
Yeah.
The way those guys happen is that like. They've been through this progression in their sport, in their culture, in their world, and they've seen things change, and they changed for the better. Like we did it. We were the generation that got it right. And then the next generation comes along, and some maverick starts changing things, and they're like, "Fuck that guy!" That guy's ruining everything. And I'm like, "You were that guy.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Your generation is doing the same thing this one is. They're just moving past you, and you're having a really hard time handling that." Those people are all over climbing. I'm glad to hear they're elsewhere. That makes my cold little heart happy.
Yeah, I kind of came to a lot of these sports late. I think it sounds like maybe you did as well. And I think that helps to kind of remember my poser / kook / noob status a little bit, because it was, if you grew up doing this stuff, or especially maybe if you started doing some of these things when you were a teenager and it really kind of cemented those biases. I think that some of it is good. I think that this is the perspective I bring like to the e-bike debate. Because I definitely went down this road. When e-bikes on mountain bike trails started to become a thing, I was absolutely that curmudgeon. I'm like, fuck you, go earn it. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then I started kind of thinking about the different use scenarios, right? It's like, okay, folks who maybe have a disability, got it, that can get them out. Like, I thought about like my wife who likes mountain biking, but not as much as I do. So if we go out, well, if she's on an e-bike, I could do maybe like the 20-mile ride that I wanted to do, and she can now come with me. However, I'm starting to notice like some e-bikers, usually younger people. Again, this is the risk of becoming the curmudgeon, right? The old guy on the couch who's complaining about things. But they're kind of like, so there's a hill behind my house that's like kind of a perfect training hill. It's steep, it's loose, it's chunky. It's not a lot of miles, but like you can leave from my house and go get a really steep climb in. You can see the ocean from the top. It's great. Like it's a beautiful place to go. And you just get these every once in a while, like, on these really loose, narrow trails, getting blown by like 3 kids on e-bikes. And, I want to get mad, but it's also like, well, maybe that's where, hey, having to go out and earn it a little bit may have, if you knew what it was like to actually go mountain biking on a just regular pedal bike, then maybe you would behave a little bit differently. So I don't know. I think there's a role for the curmudgeon. Like, youth learn from the old man, but I do hear you. Like, you don't always just want to default to, I know what's right because I've been doing it longer than you.
Yeah, I also want to like revisit this conversation when your knees start hurting and you start Googling e-bikes and seeing how much they cost. Yeah, I have a really complicated relationship with history. I think that's what creates the curmudgeon, right? We've been in it long enough to have a history with it. And like you mentioned at the top of the show, I'm working on this new podcast, Written in Stone, and it's got a pretty unique format for climbing in that I'm telling these stories, but you're not hearing from the people themselves. I have access to those people. I'm often, texting them to get details or emailing them to get details about stories, but I don't want their voices on there. And part of that's because they are their voices are colored by the Curmudgeons. You
Right.
can't help it. And I don't want to downplay the history. I want to celebrate it. I want to turn it into this larger than life thing because I think that's really fun. And being curmudgeonly can take the fun out of it. It can downplay the cool things.
Totally.
So I'm purposely saying, I'm not interested in having your voice here. I'm going to tell you I'm writing a story about you, and I'm sound designing this story about you, and I'll let you listen to it when it's done. But you have no say in it.
Right.
Either you like it or you don't, and that's fine. I want to tell this story in a really fun way, and I don't want the curmudgeons brought into it.
But you do interview some of them after the fact then too, right? It's almost like a companion to the story you told. Is that how that's working?
I haven't interviewed any of the people from the stories. I'm interviewing the people who were inspired by them so that they get to talk about what inspired them about this person or that ascent. I may bring some in end of season to have some conversations, but I'm also not sure about that. I'm really loving it not having to worry at all about the curmudgeons.
So let's talk about the show for a minute. So how many episodes is the season going to be?
I have no idea.
How many stories do you have, I guess?
It started out, it was going to be 20 episodes, 10 stories, 10 conversations. And what happened is I'm like sending emails to all these people I want to have conversations with. And a lot of them are like the best climbers in the world,
Right.
So I'm like, these people aren't going to get back to me. So I need to email 3 or 4 people so I can get one. Well, now that the show is coming out, everyone's emailing me back and they're like, oh, I want in. So now I'm going to have like 3 conversations for one story quite a few times. So it's going to be a lot of episodes. I'm not sure exactly how many. 30, 40, something like that. I don't know.
Last thing I want to talk to you about is, I can only pick, so many sort of, quote unquote rock fights about rock climbing because of my amateur rock climber status. I tell people I enjoy climbing. I would never call myself a rock climber. I just don't feel like I've earned that. So what are some of your, climber hot takes? Did you bring any hot takes with you? Any rocks you'd like to throw at the climbing community?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. I mean, I have a lot of rocks in my, like if I were a fanny pack, it would be filled with rocks I want to throw. First, and I'm curious if this shows up in other sports. Maybe it doesn't because climbing is a sport where you're very often like stationed in one area for a long time. But the crag dog, like bringing your dog to the crag, and maybe I should rephrase that. It's not the crag dog I'm mad at. It's the bad crag dog owner.
Hell yeah.
That I want to throw some rocks at, like big rocks. I want to, like for real, throw some big rocks at these people. I got bitten by a dog this summer at the crag, and it was like I was just walking on the trail. The dog runs up behind me and like latches onto my calf.
Oh shit, dude.
And I didn't have, I still had my pack on, and my friends were just down the wall. So I let the guy know, your dog just bit me. He's up on the wall. And I go down to my friends. I clean out the wound. I'm like Q-tip, inside this fang mark in my leg. Yeah, he got in there. And then I walked back up to talk to the owner, like just to see, has your dog had shots and all of this? And they're gone. They were just like, we're out of here. We don't even want to have this conversation. So bad crag dog owners need some rocks thrown at them.
Yeah, we got a problem with dogs in the outdoor community and probably beyond. Let's be honest. And I own 3 dogs. All right, I'm a dog guy. Before we record this podcast, I just walked my dog for 2 miles. I love my dog sometimes more than I love my kids. Let's be honest. I love my dog, but you gotta know who you are as a dog owner and what your dog is all about. And
yeah.
I think this definitely extends to other sports because you see people out skiing with their dogs and biking with their dogs and obviously running with their dogs.
Skiing with their dogs.
Yeah. And if your dog is well trained and voice command and will abide all of your commands and are you've proven to be friendly, all these things, I have no problem with that. If you have a crag dog that goes up and lays on a rock and sits in the sun and people are coming and going, and he just pays no mind. He's like friendly. You can pet him. Great. I think that's an added thing to the climbing day experience, right? That's cool. But if that dog that came up and bit you, that person knew that dog was capable of it.
They knew. They knew.
Right. And my dog is a sweetheart, but she also, she's a COVID dog, and for the first year of her life didn't meet probably another human being other than my family. So she tends, sometimes she'll bark when she sees someone.
Sure.
And it's nothing. There's nothing mean. She's friendly. Would never hurt anybody. But it's annoying as shit. So like, why am I going to take my dog somewhere where it's like I'm up on the wall, right, and my dog's down there barking at you, walking up to go set up, go climb for the day?
Yeah.
What? Just because you're too what? You don't want to leave the dog at home? Like, leave the dog at home. It's okay. It's a dog. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times in the past few years I've been at the Crag, and dogs outnumber humans. Like, some people bring all 3 of their dogs to the Crag with them, and
come on, man.
And then there's always a dog fight. I bet I've seen 100 dog fights in the last 5 years. You know? It's like, I don't want to bring my toddler climbing because I'm afraid there's going to be a dog fight that she's right in the middle of. Yeah,
and also while we're on the dog topic, I'm over these people bringing their dogs on airplanes. Like, people walking around airports, and here comes some, like, a 24-year-old woman with her, like, German Shepherd, and then it's going to, like, squeeze into the seat under her. And look, I haven't had any, like, negative interactions, but I'm just like, and again, I love my dogs, but guess what? I also like to travel. So my family and I have signed up for a lot of money being spent on dog care when we're not at home. Yeah, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and obviously if it's an assistant dog in some way,
if it's legit.
But if it's just because you think that's your baby, it's not your baby. It's a dog.
We can wrap it up there. What do you have to plug? We talked about your new show, but you've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Where can people find you? What's happening in Kris Hampton's life?
I'm at Power Company Climbing everywhere except for the Twitters or the X's or whatever that is nowadays. I just don't do it. Not interested. Yeah, so at Power Company Climbing, kind of everywhere.
What are the shows? So I've
got Power Company Climbing podcast. I've got Breaking Beta, which is a climbing science podcast. Written in Stone, which is the climbing history podcast. I've done a show called Plugtone Outdoors, which is just like interesting outdoor stories. There's actually a great episode on there about Gabe Joyce. He's a mountain runner here in Wyoming who went and ran the Snowman race in Bhutan. And it's a really cool episode, I think. I don't know a lot about mountain running, but a lot of your listeners might really enjoy it.
Are you going to replay your Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer episode for Christmas coming up here?
Oh, maybe. I hadn't thought about that, but that's
one
of my favorite episodes ever, man. I love it.
We need more of that kind of storytelling in outdoor podcasts, so keep up the good work with that, man. Appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. Looking forward to throwing more rocks in the future.
Oh, open invitation.
All right.
All right, that's the show for today. Big thank you to my guest, Kris Hampton. What are your climbing hot takes? Please send them to myrockfight. That's myrockfight@gmail.com. And then we can have Kris come back on in the future to break them down. The Rock Fight is a production of Rockfight LLC. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And here to take us out is Kris DeMakes with the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time.
Rock Fight!